Beacon Press Audio presents A Black Woman's History of the United States by Daina Ramey Berry and Nicole Gross. This audiobook is narrated by Janina Edwards, published by Beacon Press Audio 2020. Author's Note: On a cool September evening in 1832, Black and white women descended on Franklin Hall in Boston to hear a speech delivered by Maria Stuart. It was a special evening because Maria, who was Black, was the first American woman of any race to give public remarks, and this was only her second speech. There are no chains so galling as the chains of ignorance, no fetters so binding as those that bind the soul and exclude it from the vast field of useful and scientific knowledge. Maria proclaimed to her captivated audience. "Why sit ye here and die?" she asked in the title of her remarks, which challenged women to stand up and address racial and gender bias. Speaking on behalf of African American women's rights, Maria urged her white counterparts to think about the condition of Blacks, in particular, women. Maria's challenge drives this audiobook and informs our thinking about creating a more inclusive history. Her mission guided our writing of this history of the United States, in which Black women and their contributions are on full display. Here, we lift the chains and explore the knowledge and influence of women like Maria, who had something to say about their place in history. We also could not help but contemplate our own locations along that continuum. Although we did not come of age during segregation, we spent much of our early childhoods witnessing African American women across the country speaking truth to power by declaring Black is beautiful and wearing their natural hair in afros. We grew up on opposite sides of the country, one on the East Coast, the other on the West. And we were reared in different kinds of families. One born into a two-parent household where both parents held degrees in higher education, the other raised in a female-headed household where the sole caregiver and provider attended college but was unable to finish. One has ancestral roots in the American South. One has descendants who immigrated from the British West Indies in the early and mid-20th century. We both attended college and eventually went on to pursue doctorates in history. Yet despite our differences, the Academy put the same obstacles in our paths, and as Black women historians, we confronted them continuously. Even with the major advances in the field of African American women's history by the 1990s, we still faced a biased system that did not believe in our potential as scholars or in the validity of our chosen area of study, Black women. It did not matter that one of us focused on enslavement and the other on crime and violence. That Black women in America had a history at all was itself contested, as was our capacity as Black women thinkers. Fortunately, we had Black women historians as advisors and role models, and we were the beneficiaries of incredible new books on African American women's history, works that energized and challenged us and left us wanting to know more. But that was then. Long before we learned about Beacon Press's Revisioning American History series, we discussed the need for a new dynamic history survey about Black women in the United States. At the time, we were at the same institution and had several conversations about creating a book such as this one. The past few decades have witnessed a thrilling burst of evocative works on African American women in every conceivable area, from Black women fugitives on the run to Black women's bodies being auctioned, bought, and sold in every stage of their life and death, to political organizing in beauty shops, to fashion-forward sisters with Black power ideals, to Black queer activists, to Black women enmeshed in the criminal justice system. With so much new scholarship, as well as pioneering works by historians such as Paula Giddings, Evelyn Brooks Higginbotham, Darlene Clark Hine, Sharon Harley, Jacqueline Jones, Rosalind Terborg Penn, and Deborah Gray White. The task of composing a concise, accessible, yet fresh and rigorous book about Black women's history was truly daunting. We knew that we needed to strike a balance between writing an overview of Black women's history and incorporating newer work on those stories, voices, and histories of Black women whose lives have, nonetheless, remained somehow shrouded. We want this audiobook to be a new kind of survey on Black women's history, one that is purposely not comprehensive or attempting to be the definitive history of Black women in the United States. Instead, we see the audiobook as a vivid introduction to Black women's history that aims to paint a richly textured portrait of Black womanhood in a manner that celebrates Black women's diversity and inspires readers to seek out more. We also want this audiobook to be heard by students, book club members, aunts, uncles, granddads, artists, policymakers, activists, and by people in recovery, and by people in politics, and everybody in between. So we do our best to avoid jargon and language that tends to exclude rather than educate. This approach, together with our journey as co-authors, has challenged us to routinely discuss who and what to include, and who and what to leave out, and why. As much as possible, we chose to include the words of Black women themselves. We did so not only to have Black women's voices play a central role in the audiobook, but also because we fundamentally believe that what these voices tell us is crucial for understanding history, and for using that history to help us navigate the challenges of today. It is surely evident that this work is not simply an academic undertaking. We believe it is our responsibility to tell Black women's histories, to continue to resist the forces that attempt to marginalize Black womanhood, and to help inspire and support Black women wherever they are. Our work highlights key themes that dominate Black women's experiences in the United States, and the histories that result exist ultimately as a testament to the beauty, richness, rhythm, tragedy, heartbreak, rage, and enduring love that abounds in the spirit of Black women in communities all across the nation. As we tell their stories and unleash their histories, Black women soar through the content that follows with loose fetters and liberated spirits, just as Maria desired. A note on usage. We use Black and African American largely interchangeably, though there are points when we clarify whether a Black woman has Caribbean, South American, or Central American, or African origins. When it is historically relevant or appears in quoted material, we use the terminology of the period, whether it is a racial epithet or a historical term such as Negro or colored. The term slaveholders is deliberately used to represent African Americans who held other African Americans in bondage. This word choice is different from enslavers, which we use throughout to represent non-Blacks, i.e. whites and Native Americans, who enslaved African Americans. The term enslaver refers to someone who forces people into the system of slavery. The term slaveholder refers to someone who holds another person in slavery without the full power of a system to support the practice. Introduction. Nanny's Legacy and the Histories of Black Women. We must have a glorified womanhood that can look any man in the face, white, red, yellow, brown, or black, and tell of the nobility of character within Black womanhood. Nanny Helen Burroughs. To write a history about the United States from the perspective of Black women is to chart a course where the incredible, the fantastic, and the triumphant meet, mix, and mingle, often simultaneously, with hardship and terror.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?